everyone, my name is Brighton, and I'm going to be talking about my field experience today for Education 220, Diversity in the Schools. So first off, I observed at Kuna High School. I went to Kuna High School about every week for 3 weeks. I went there from about 9 a.m. to 2, sometimes 3 p.m. And I observed a freshman and sophomore English and language arts class. So every other week, I would observe freshmen and then I would observe sophomores. So they were on a block schedule, meaning they only had 4 classes a day, and it was about a 2-hour long period of class. So that was different for me. I'm used to the 7-hour school day, which 7 different classes. So that was something that I was able to observe. Also, I want to be an elementary school teacher, so being in the high school was something that I was able to observe from the point of a teacher, which was good for me to do that. One of the things that Mrs. Thompson did every day was she had daily presentations that she had on the board. So when she would walk in the classroom, there was the presentation up there that had the different expectations for the students and what kind of supplies that they would need to be ready for that class period. So one of the things that they did daily was their writer's notebook. They had this composition notebook that had different sections sectioned off for different areas of writing. So there was some for like MLA citations, how to make a perfect paragraph, how to make your essays better, different thesis statements, and they had these all sectioned off. And every day she would have about a page on her presentation that was devoted clearly to the writer's notebook notes. And every class period, they would get to class, get their supplies ready, and write those notes in the notebook. So they were able to do these notes throughout the cumulative of this semester. So it's a big project that takes up a pretty good chunk of their grade. Another thing that they did, which was an entire semester-long project, was these book reports and presentations. So the one student that I was able to observe that did this book report while I was there, he had decided that he was doing his early before the semester ended. So what they do is they take a book that they haven't read before, and they read it, and they write a paper on it. Then they take this paper and this book, and they go up to the front of the classroom and they talk about it. They also have to have a visual diorama of the book in some form. So the student that I got to see do this book report in front of the class, he did it on a Stephen King novel, and he went up to the front of the classroom and he talked about his favorite parts of the book and what kind of things he noticed were good writing skills that he could use later. And he also had a diorama of a scene that was in the book that he had made out of modeling clay. So that was something that the students are flexible with however long they want to take on it. They have that option there, and they're able to finish it in however long they want, but it has to be done by the end of the semester. So one of the different theories that I saw a lot of in Mrs. Thompson's classroom was the different gender schemas that she had. She was very good in her classroom towards the different genders and the gender types. So it was a very diverse classroom, and because freshmen and sophomores, they're in that kind of stage where they're trying to find themselves and find who they are, it was kind of difficult, I think, for her to see all this different things happening, but she had such a good attitude towards the students and was very respectful towards them that they respected her and they came to her for different struggles and stuff that they would have. She also never really used any specific gender roles in the classroom that would exclude such students that didn't feel as if they were particularly any gender or the other. So that was good in her way. Some word choice that she used a lot, I felt like, was guys instead of everyone. I've heard that in different education classes that's something that some teachers are really stuck on and some are not, but she used guys a lot instead of everyone, which doesn't make her a bad teacher. Also, she used the cognitive development theory a lot. Kohlberg's theory about appropriate gender behavior, that was something that, like I mentioned before, she was really good at making sure that there wasn't any inappropriate gender biases that she had. She was really good at making sure that there were no roles, that everyone felt like they were included and that they were not, because they were a certain gender, they weren't excluded. So that was really good. She didn't have any biases towards anyone. She acted the exact same to the girls as well as the guys. So it was something that she didn't take any biases towards. So I learned a lot through these observations. A lot of the things that I learned was different word choices that she would use that I really, really liked. So the students had a writing table that they would come to that Mrs. Thompson would sit at while they were writing their essays. So she would sit at this table and they would just come up, and if they needed help, they'd sit on their laptops and they'd ask her questions and change the things that they needed. So one of the things that she did a lot was she would say, I would recommend you do this instead of you should change this. I feel like that just kind of makes it sound like they don't have to change everything and that they're not being forced by the teacher. I thought that was something that was really important to note. There was also a lot of times where the students, they're freshmen and sophomores, and they're in high school, so they would just kind of sit around and they wouldn't want to do anything. And instead of just saying, oh, are you wasting your time? She would say, are you finished or are you just processing it? And a lot of the times the students would wake up and be like, oh, I'm just processing it. So that was just something that wasn't kind of a rude way to say it, and that was really good. And another thing that she did on her presentations and her notes that I thought was really good was that she color-coded different notes to correspond with examples. So on one of the notes that she had done, she had a outline for a perfect essay, and she had them all color-coded, and then she wrote an example essay that had the same color-coded paragraphs with the perfect paragraph format. So she was really organized in that way so that the students didn't get confused, and so that it was easier for her when she was to go back to grade these writer's notebooks, that they were exactly how they should have been on her presentation. So that was good. Also, a little bit of some negatives that I learned, that some presentations are boring. A lot of the times you could see that the students would get bored sitting and staring at the PowerPoints every day, and they didn't want to interact. So I think that having more interactions with the class is more important than having a structured PowerPoint presentation every class period. I would think that it's better to talk to the students and have more interactive lessons rather than presentations every day. One of the things that I saw that I wasn't quite fond of is that her disciplinary actions were not very many. She was a really good teacher, so not a lot of the students would disrespect her in any way. So in one of the class periods, the students were getting a little rowdy, and they kind of, they just weren't paying attention, and they were talking and all these different things. But all she did was stand in front of the classroom. She didn't say anything, she didn't do anything specific, but she just stood there. And we sat there for a good minute and a half, 2 minutes before the students crowd themselves together and actually stopped talking and was paying attention to her. So I thought that that was kind of a time waster. I wouldn't do it as a teacher, but I mean, she was still a fantastic teacher. One thing that I thought was really nice that she did is she had the groups assigned by same topic of interest. So on one day, she had the students at the end of their class period, they wrote down on a piece of paper, they were reading a book, and they wrote down on this piece of paper one of the topics that interests them the most in this little book. So the next day, they came into class, and she had assigned those people that had the same topic of interest on this book. They put them in groups, and she had them make a climax poster about this book. And so I thought that that was really interesting to assign them based on same topics rather than making them just choose who they wanted to be with and be with friends and that kind of thing. So I thought that that was a really good way for them to be able to connect some way in the groups rather than just, I'm going to be with my friend. So this is my reference page, and then I'll attach a link down below for my little assessment that I have for you guys. Thanks for listening.